I'm Lauren.
And I'm Sasha.
And this is So You Live Under a Rock. Welcome to our channel. This is our first episode. We decided to start this channel because we feel very passionately about a lot of elements of pop culture, books, movies, you name it. And sometimes we get worried that people don't know about these topics and might not be as passionate as us. And
we're here to enlighten you.
Yeah, we think everyone should be passionate, and we're here to bring you back out from underneath that rock.
So you live under a rock. You've been seeing all the Percy Jackson news come out this week. There was a new book that came out yesterday. A new trailer came out a couple weeks ago. And you're like, I never got a chance to read this as a kid. Or maybe you're looking at it and saying, I don't remember what happened in the books and I want to know what's going to happen before the TV show comes out December 19th.
December.
We will put it here when the TV show is coming out.
So we're also here to help you. If your only exposure to Percy Jackson was those god-awful movies, Logan Lerman love ya, but we see why you went back under the rock. So we're going to be summarizing each week, chapter by chapter by chapter, just to kind of get everyone sped up and caught up with the world of Percy Jackson. So we're going to start by reading a little summary. After each summary, we're going to go through our notes, our thoughts, our observations. We've read this series before as kids. We're reading them again as adults. We've read them a few times in between too. So we'll just kind of dissect our thoughts, our feelings, our personal attachments, and passion for this series. You might be wondering, what's going on over here? What's this on the wall?
Is it decoration?
No.
We're not at my house.
So it's not a decoration, I guess. This is our Dance Moms-esque pyramid of Percy Jackson characters. So we have taken the liberty of ranking some of the characters that you will meet in the first 3 chapters, and based on their actions and their behavior from these chapters, we've put them onto a Dance Moms pyramid. We might have some differing...
We definitely have some differing opinions on who is that top spot for this first 3 chapters, which we will get into.
But we will do this every week with all the new characters that get integrated. We might do a big pyramid, or we might just keep it to the week. You'll have to tune in to find out. But yeah, here we go. Chapter 1. I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. Percy Jackson, the main character, is a 12-year-old boy and recent student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids. His life changes dramatically after a school field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Here, students admire ancient Greek and Roman art and share knowledge on the Greek gods. Previous field trips did not bode well for Percy after mysterious accidents occurred. On this trip, 2 chaperones lead the group of tweens, Mr. Brunner, the Latin teacher and Percy's favorite, and Mrs. Dodds, the math teacher. Percy's only friend, Grover, is on the trip as well. As the group explores the museum, Mr. Brunner approaches Percy and tells him that he holds great promise, leaving Percy perplexed with his below-average grades and dyslexia. Why would they say that? After an altercation with bully Nancy Bobofit at the water fountain, Percy is falsely accused of pushing her. Mrs. Dodds leads Percy deeper into the museum to punish him. As she is demanding a confession from Percy, she transforms into a fury, a mythical creature with bat wings and yellow fangs. Mr. Brunner appears and tosses Percy a ballpoint pen that turns into a bronze sword. Percy swings the sword, striking the monster, who is Mrs. Dodds, and it turns to dust. Dazed by this experience, Percy returns back to the fountain, only to discover that in everyone else's minds, Mrs. Dodds never existed. Grover tells him that Mrs. Kerr has always been their math teacher, leaving Percy more confused than ever. Let's dissect what we just learned, what we just read.
So immediately, and this was a quote from the book, the quote is, "Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood." This immediately captures my attention.
I'm going to rewind to the title. Iconic. Incredible. Iconic.
Which Rick has amazing, that's the author, he has amazing titles.
And the titles get better as the series goes on.
I have a note for the 3rd chapter when we get there. That's my exact note.
Yeah.
Saying bangers.
They get better. I have another point off of yours from the book. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great. Read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. read this for the first time as a kid, and I think I desperately tried to convince myself that, like, I was not a normal kid, and I knew that this wasn't fiction, and this is real, and this is gonna happen to me. And I feel like, obviously, like, the books are for kids, but, like, I feel like that is, like, really formative experience.
I have like the same notes. different line though. It's off that same section, but don't say I didn't warn you. And I just remember looking around the room as a kid and being like, ooh, like I'm gonna continue reading this. They're not gonna know. Like
Period.
I'm special and I'm gonna keep reading. That's the exact same reaction I had as a kid.
Yancey is to PCA as Percy is to Zoe from Zoe 101. Because my only frame of reference for boarding school, like, was PCA from Zoe 101. So I didn't really understand, like, why they were at a museum or, like, why they were in a city, but I was like, Percy is the Zoe of this school, and, like, that was what I took from that. My next note that I have, I'm not sure if we should be talking about this, because I feel like it might be a bit of a spoiler.
What's the spoiler?
Mr. Brunner, as we will call him currently, if you know, you know, has another job. And in later books in the series, this job is pretty full-time year-round.
Yes, I would say that as well.
So I feel like the fact that Mr. Brunner is not at that job and is this teacher at this point in time kind of felt like a bit of a plot hole to me.
You know, now that you've mentioned it, it is kind of...
It seems like I have a big question mark over my head as I'm reading this. And I know it's one of those things you're not really supposed to question later on. So maybe I just am ruining the fun, but
that's a good point to draw out because, you know, he is supposed to be in charge of something that we're not going to mention.
Another job. He has another job.
Which we will find out soon what it is. But that is pretty much like all of his time. So you're right. I don't know how he got time to do
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring out. When you first start reading this book, you have no idea what's going to happen, but rereading it, you're like, oh, they really set this up in chapter 1.
Yeah, and I also have the scene where Grover is sitting at the fountain with Percy, and Nancy comes over and is, like, throwing peanut butter and ketchup sandwiches at his head. That is, like, peak 2012 humor. That is peak. That is hilarious. Like, that is, like, when you were 10, 11, 12 years old and you were like, that's nasty, I love it. You know, like, that was, like, full, like, would you rather, truth or dare era of your life, and, like,
it honestly dates the book.
It dates the book, totally. Like, I read that and I was like, oh yeah, this book didn't come out yesterday. Another thing in that same scene, there's a quote here, when Percy is mad at Nancy, he's getting mad that she's being mean to his best friends, it says, a wave roared in his ears. Because he's so angry. This is another example. I have slay foreshadowing.
To what? We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. But just know that it's a slay example of foreshadowing.
And then just to round out this chapter, I have a huge paragraph here of just gaslighting.
Yes. I have gaslighting too.
Gaslighting to the max at the end.
Gaslighting.
I get it. Like, they wanted to keep him in the dark, but I mean, like,
the way everyone just forgets about Mrs. Dodds. Dobbs. And then it's just like, oh yeah, we don't know.
Like, that's tough.
Fake. And Grover's not a good friend to Percy for doing that. Chapter 2. 3 old ladies knit the socks of death.
Iconic. Every time.
Such a slay. Okay. No one seems to recall Mrs. Dodd's existence after Percy destroyed her, so he is even more convinced something strange is going on. Frustrated by this and other strange occurrences, his grades drop, he fights with Nancy, and then disrespects a teacher. With the end of the school year approaching, Percy is expelled from returning to Yancey Academy in the fall, but he is allowed to finish out the current school year. Percy decides the only final he will prepare for is Latin, since Mr. Brunner is his favorite teacher. He approaches Mr. Brunner's office and overhears a conversation between Mr. Brunner and Grover regarding the incident with Mrs. Dodds. They talk about magical mist making the students and staff forget the altercation. Then Grover says that Percy may be the only one who can save them from the kindly ones, before the summer solstice. After the school year ends, Percy confronts Grover about his conversation with Mr. Brunner while riding on a bus. Grover confesses to being Percy's protector before the bus breaks down. This is where it gets good, people. Off the bus, across the street, Grover and Percy see 3 old women knitting. Grover seems to be worried and makes Percy promise him that they will walk to Percy's house together. Percy agrees and watches as the woman in the middle cuts a string. Back on the bus, Grover and Percy discuss the implication of what they saw, because the cut signifies someone is going to die. T. Things are getting good. Sasha.
Thoughts? Well, first of all, they're 12. Well, Percy's 12. That's a lot for that age. Like, I think that's something as you get older, when you're reading it as a kid, you don't think about that.
Can I tell you a secret? I didn't even think about that at all. But I'm glad you did, because that's a good point.
Yeah, like he's 12 years old and he's going through all this stuff. So thinking of the way, you know, his actions are, he's just a little boy.
He's just a kid.
He's just a little baby.
He's just a little baby.
I have a quote here. Here was my favorite teacher in front of the class telling me I couldn't handle it. After saying he believed in me all year, now he was telling me I was destined to get kicked out. This line is said after Percy talks to Mr. Brunner?
I've been saying, I don't know how to say it.
Brunner?
Go with
Brunner? Let us know if you know.
If you know.
Brunner. I liked it when you said it.
Oh, thanks.
Brunner? There you go.
Confidence is key.
That was, yeah, she's very confident. So this line is delivered after Percy talks to Mr. Brunner, and Brunner basically just says, hey, like, it's for the best that you're getting kicked out of this school. Dang. Basically just solidifying all of Percy's fears of not being good enough for the school, being a bad kid. Imagine if your favorite elementary school teacher had said that to you.
That'd be hard.
Devastating.
One thing that I really noticed in this chapter is they were talking about the weather left and right and left and right. And obviously this is some foreshadowing. There's a lot of foreshadowing. We don't know. You don't know. We know. So I can tell you that is something to pay attention to. I have a quote here. The freak weather continued, which didn't help my mood. One night, a thunderstorm blew out the windows in my dorm room. A few days later, the biggest tornado ever spotted in the Hudson Valley touched down only 50 miles from UNC Academy. One of the current events we studied in social studies class was the unusual number of small planes that have gone down and sudden squalls in the Atlantic that year. There is some stuff going on that we as the readers don't know. We don't know that they're happening.
And then also in this chapter I have down, we were introduced to different social classes. So this was something that
you are good.
We see in the chapter discussing their elaborate summer vacations. They're going on planes to faraway places, and internally we do see Percy is discussing his summer job options. So very different when it comes to, you know, his schoolmates and who he is. And in chapter 1 we don't really get that insight yet.
You are good. You are really good. Yeah. That's good. I just feel so bad for Percy when he overhears his best friend and his favorite teacher, first of all, suspiciously talking after hours. It's sus. It's weird. I would be questioning that point blank, period. But then the fact that they're talking about him, about something that he's been gaslit to believe never even happened, I feel so bad for him. Like, it just sucks. But I feel like, end of this chapter, the scene is set. We learn about the place called Camp Half-Blood. Grover hands Percy a business card, which also, in hindsight, at 12 years old, you're supposed to be in junior high. What are you doing with a business card?
Very strange.
So, another question mark over your head, because you're like, what the is going on? Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
I know. Okay. What the is going on? And so we know that there's this place called Camp Half-Blood. And Grover works there, lives there, does something there to the point where he has a business card. So the scene is being set. Things are happening. We're doing it up.
I do have one last note for this chapter, and it comes more towards the end where Grover and Percy are on the bus, and Grover basically is telling Percy, hey, don't leave without me, you need to come with me, I've been protecting you this whole time. And we have this moment here where Percy says to himself, and here he was acting like he was the one defending me. Grover, I said, what exactly are you protecting me from? And this just made me laugh when I was reading it back because, and I don't know if you remember this, Persassy.
Yes.
Do you remember him, the meme?
Persassy.
Yeah.
Oh,
do you remember him?
That is a Tumblr reference.
Tumblr reference. And I recently saw a tweet about how the readers of our age were worried that the new generation was not going to know that Persassy even existed. And just reading this line, I mean,
How
it comes
could you
in,
not know?
Yeah, it comes in chapter 2. He is so sass-coded. From just
Period.
this one moment, he's recalling all the work he's put in all year to protect his friend, and he's rejecting the silliness. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, like
you
who are
protect
you?
me?
Yeah, period.
So don't freak out, guys. People are gonna know who Persassy is. He's sass-coded.
And now you know.
Now you know.
Chapter 3. Grover unexpectedly loses his pants. Scandalous. Okay. After arriving at the bus terminal, Percy ditches Grover and departs for home on his own. Before entering the apartment, he tells readers about his mother, Sally Jackson. She's the best person Percy knows despite some unfortunate circumstances in her life. Percy's father was the only great break she received, although they never married. Percy has no memories of him before he left for an ocean voyage. Sally later married Gabe, who Percy refers to as Smelly Gabe, the world-class jerk. Inside the apartment, Smelly Gabe rudely welcomes Percy home, and Percy storms upstairs to his bedroom. He is later comforted by his mother, who gives him the exciting news about taking a trip to Montauk, where she met Percy's father. As they're leaving for their trip, Smelly Gabe warns Percy not to damage his car. While at the beach, Sally answers some of Percy's questions about his father. He learns that his father wanted to send him to a special camp. Some bells should be ringing, people. But Sally couldn't bring herself to take him there. That night, a knock on the door amidst the hurricane brewing outside wakes Percy and Sally. Sally opens the door to Grover, who says he has been searching all night for Percy since losing him at the bus terminal. Sally is not fazed by Grover's presence other than why he came and demands that Percy tell her everything that happened at Yancey and at the museum. After Percy finishes telling his mother everything, the three of them run to the car where Percy notices Grover has hooves for feet. I'll let everyone sit with that. Okay.
This is where it really starts to kind of take off into, the next
Scene, world building.
My first note here was just about Percy showing so much love for his mom in the beginning. It's just every time he speaks of her, it's always in such a positive light.
I have Queen Sally intro. And I also have, I love that Sally works at a candy store because obviously as a kid, like, oh, candy store, like that's fun to you. But I feel like from an adult perspective, like this just doubles down on like how sweet and great and amazing of a person she is. Like she works at a candy store. Like you can't be a bad person and work at a candy store.
That's true.
I thought that was like a good re-emphasis on like just how good of a person she is.
Mm-hmm. I also have a note of, I wonder who's Percy's dad, because we don't know yet.
I have a quote here. Sally says that Percy's dad is lost at sea, not dead. So I just wonder if there's something there, because I thought that was interesting.
We'll circle back. Maybe it'll come back up. I also have, Gabe is abusive.
Gabe is so abusive.
Like, he's just like...
To Percy and to Sally. And I think, not to bring this up, in the unfortunate movie adaptation, he's like blatantly, I think, abusive to both of them.
And that's something when I was a kid, I read it and it wasn't as impactful.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I didn't really think about it. And when I was rereading this, I was like, holy, like, he's bad. That's not good. In this quote here, Percy's reflecting on Sally's behavior around everyone and just how nice she is. He's never heard her raise her voice or say an unkind word to anyone, not even me or Gabe.
Queen Sally. I believe it.
Sally is literally a saint. My wheels are turning. What is she playing at? Looking at Gabe and what kind of person he is, there's got to be something more going on.
If she's so good of a person, why would she not want to be with someone who's also a good person? Like, so just some food for thought.
Yeah, and then
you go. One other thing that I love about Sally is she's petty. She's not afraid to throw subtle jabs. There's a little moment in this chapter where Percy's recounting a story about how he knows his mom hasn't lost his fire and isn't just like being nice to Gabe because she like actually likes him, but they got in an argument, Sally and Gabe once, about how there's no blue food. So now Sally makes a point to bring home blue food or make blue food or something. So she knows she's fiery, and I think that's definitely.
That's the blue food is just so iconic.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it yet at this point of the book. It just furthers my Sally is a baddie agenda.
She is a baddie. And Sally is a baddie.
On another note on Sally, I even have a quote here about the car because Gabe is, thinking about pulling out, not letting them use the car. Of course he will, in reference of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Your stepfather is just worried about money. That's all. Besides, Gabriel won't have to settle for bean dip. I'll make him enough 7-layer dip for the whole weekend. Guacamole, sour cream, the works. So she's not only, catering to him, she's going above just to, do something. And what is it she's doing?
What is it?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
But she's a baddie.
Something's at play here.
Something's at play.
Spoiler alert. There's something going on.
Really? Maybe. Oh my goodness.
You'll find out.
Whoa.
You'll find out. And then I think this is where I kind of fell off on my notes because this is directly from my notes. So there's a storm and Grover is there and Grover has hooves.
Why is Grover at the beach? Why does Grover have hooves?
There's a little mystery that emerges in this chapter. Of course there's a lot of things like, what's going on? What's the truth? What don't we know? But Sally says something about how Percy has to leave and has to go to new places and can't be somewhere for a long time. Does this sound familiar, you might ask? Yes, it does. Because you know who else said something very similar to Percy and said, oh, it's a good thing you got expelled from this school? Mr. Brunner. So what do Sally and Mr. Brunner both know? Because they're not supposed to know each other.
And they're saying similar things.
It's suspicious. I'll say it's something's going on. Something's going on. Do you have any predictions for what's next? What's next?
What's next is
What's
the pyramid.
Next? I was talking about the book.
Oh, the book.
What's next in the book? Let me clarify.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for that
You're so
clarifying.
welcome.
What's next in the book? At this point, obviously, I know what happens because I've read it before, but I think when I got to this point, and even when I got to this point as I was rereading, I wanted to immediately go to the next chapter just because it ended so...
It ended with
a
hooves.
cliffhanger. Yeah, it ended with hooves. I want to know, why does Grover have hooves?
What's going on? And then why are they frantically trying to leave this house that they just got to?
Like, a lot of questions were asked in this chapter, and we now need to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that chapter 4 will be enlightening when
Totally.
it comes to those questions. This is our pyramid. We are going to rank.
It's time.
Yeah, we're going to rank the characters based off of only the knowledge from chapters 1 through chapter 3. These will change week to week because obviously not all.
We're going to meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see new things. This is what it is today.
At number the worst, we have Smelly Gabe. Bottom of the pyramid, bottom spot.
Smelly Gabe is the worst. I don't know if we really need to elaborate on that because...
He commits crimes. Like real crimes.
Don't ask for proof of said crimes, but just know they're there and they're happening.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Next one. Nancy. She's a bully. She deserves bottom row.
We don't stand bullies. We
No.
don't. She's not as bad as Gabe, but she's still a bully.
Period.
Moving on to the third worst. Not the fourth best, but the third worst. Mr. Brunner. He is at the bottom because he is
A gaslighter.
He's a gaslighter. He's a liar. He basically degrades Percy. And
A
is
12-year-old.
a 12-year-old who doesn't deserve to be told, yeah, I knew you were gonna get expelled. Like you basically suck at everything. He doesn't say that, but he might as well have to a 12-year-old. So it's just bleeped up. Maybe he'll redeem himself. You might be wondering, when we get to this next one, what's she doing here, not in the top spot, because we just talked about her forever. Spoiler alert, it's Sally.
Oh my god, never would have guessed it.
But we put her here because she's just a solid, I don't want to say solid middle of the pack kind of gal, because that sounds bad, but like, she's supporting the pyramid.
Yeah.
She's supporting these two up top. She's protecting them from these people at the bottom.
I like that.
She's just middle of the pack in a strong way, not in like a negative, derogatory way, because that's bleeped up. So,
we have 2 remaining characters to reveal for our top spots. We actually had some controversy about who should get the top spot, so we're gonna
air out our beef.
I believe that the top spot belongs to Grover.
And I couldn't disagree more because, well, you explain why you think he's good, because I'll go off.
Okay. I believe Grover gets the top spot because in these first 3 chapters, although we're not getting all the internal dialogue that he obviously has with himself, we see glimpses through Percy's eyes of what he's going through. We're hearing him, mutter to himself about a situation that's happened in the past. It can't happen again. We don't know what it is as readers. Well, we do because we've read it.
You might in the future.
Yeah, and you will. But, we're seeing him being tormented by something. He obviously is racked with guilt from the situation. He is racked with guilt with lying to Percy. We even see a scene of him going and trying to, get him to change his mind about lying to Percy. So he's trying to do the right thing. He's in a tough spot right now.
No, because if he was so guilty and so in this tough spot, why would he lie in the first place? It's supposed to be your best friend. You're not going to lie to your best friend. And then when Percy point blank asks him about said situation, he lies again. He has the opportunity to do the right thing, and he doesn't. I don't trust him. I think he's a gaslighter. I think he's a liar. I think he's a bad friend. And there's probably more to say. I just don't know what. But I feel very passionately that he should not be the top spot.
Okay, so who do you think should be the top spot?
Obviously, the literal title character of the book series, Percy Jackson.
This guy is clearly racked with guilt over something.
But we don't know anything about him personally. We know about Percy. He has a abusive stepfather, an overworked mother who is doing her best to take care of him. He has not been given the tools in life to succeed. He is trying his best. He is going to these schools. He's applying himself in the classes that he finds interest in. Maybe he could be applying himself harder. Maybe he shouldn't have pushed someone in a water fountain. But you know what else he did? He slayed a bad guy.
But nobody knows that happened, so is it even happening?
But you know who knows that happened? His best friend, and his best friend won't even acknowledge it and tell him that he was such a hero for that.
Okay, she's good, guys. I think she's winning me over. I do have just one quote
that
I did bring for this argument because I wanted to make sure. When Grover was bullied by Nancy, instead of, getting angry or trying to get back, like Percy might have wanted to, Grover tried to calm Percy down and says, "It's okay, I like peanut butter." He's trying to take the kind route when getting bullied.
Now, what if I told you Percy was a protector, and he is a defender, and he doesn't like when his friends are bullied? I'm sorry that Grover is, I was going to say something so mean, but Grover is a okay?
Oh my god.
Grover is and that's not Percy's fault that Grover doesn't want to stand up for himself. Percy's ready to go to war for his best friend Grover, and Grover won't tell him the truth.
I'm really glad that you mentioned war. Because I have this quote. I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon. I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but of course I got expelled anyway. This is Percy reflecting on one of his past school experiences. So then my note here is, what was he aiming for if he wasn't aiming for the school bus?
So I have a counterpoint to that. Because that quote comes up when Percy is talking about how he didn't push Nancy in the fountain. Percy has a connection with water. We don't know what it is, but he didn't push her in the fountain. The water grabbed Nancy. We can assume. That leads me to believe Percy didn't put his hands on this cannon. He didn't have a direct...
Is the cannon made of water?
Maybe there's water in the cannon. I don't know how cannons work. You don't think Percy has anxiety over going home and being faced with the abusiveness of the game?
I did bring up a point that the lying of these two individuals gave him nightmares, and he's 12. Well, just the nightmares are bad. Okay.
Woo!
And so this
is our chapter 1 through 3 ranking.
Do you guys agree with the placement?
Yeah, if you think Grover should have been on top, let us know. Thank you so much for coming to our first episode of So You Live Under a Rock. We will be back.
Yeah.
In the meantime, follow us on Instagram, TikTok,
and YouTube.
Wherever you get your social fix, we're there. So we will see you
next week.